Hello and welcome to the Drexel interview. I'm your host, Paula Marantz Cohen, speaking to you from my office as Dean of the Pennoni Honors College at Drexel University in Philadelphia. Today my guest is author, journalist, filmmaker, and celebrated French philosopher Bernard-Henri Lévy. Mr. Lévy has been a force on the French intellectual scene since the late 1960s, when he helped to launch the so-called Nouveaux Philosophes, or New Philosophers. Since then, he's been involved in a myriad of projects, making films and writing novels, advising French presidents, engaging with fraught political situations throughout the world, and addressing a range of issues relevant to our time. His fame is such that he is often referred to only by his initials, BHL. A consummate Frenchman in his sartorial as well as his literary style, he is also one of his country's most relentless critics. As a longtime follower of Mr. Lévy's work, I am very pleased to have him as a guest today. Welcome to the Drexel interview.
Thank you, Paula.
Monsieur
Thanks
Lévy. So, you were born in Algeria, and you are Jewish, and yet you also went on to some of the most prestigious schools in France, and are certainly very well known in France. And I wonder how you think of yourself with respect to the dominant French culture.
I feel as a French writer, and more as a European of French origin.
Mm-hmm.
And I say more and more because Europe is such in a crisis that it deserves support, that it deserves moral investment, and I am more and more tempted to claim myself as a citizen of Europe. A French writer, because I write in French, because French language is my real fatherland, because I breathe it, I dream in it, I write in it. But as far as citizenship is concerned, the real place of modern citizenship in the part of the world where I live is no longer France, it is Europe. The place where the big questions related to citizenship, security, migrants, corruption of the politics, whatever, all these questions, the place where the agora, where they deserve to be raised, and where they can find a solution, is no longer France, but Europe. That's what I say. As a citizen, I have to be
Do you
open.
think that's new, or do you think, given that, well, as I mentioned, you were born in Algeria, but also the Jewishness here, that the cosmopolitan aspect that comes with that, for good or ill, as it was seen, because France has always been a very nationalistic country. So your emphasis on the European, do you see that as part and parcel of being French, or do you see that in a way as sort of at odds or askance from being French?
It has probably to do with the two. Normally, for the best of French, France is an idea as much as a territory, like America.
Yes.
America, which is the only country in the world which has no name, which is a flag and an idea probably more than a territory. There is so many territories in America. Is an idea. France is the same. It is an idea. When you are French, normally you are due to be, or it is more easy than in other places, to be a cosmopolitan. Mm. And when you are a Jew, it might be even more easy. So a French Jew has a sort of vocation, a natural vocation to cosmopolitanism. Yes,
interesting,
so.
to conjoin those two, and hopefully we'll get back to that. I want to talk about you within a philosophical tradition. Now, Albert Camus was Algerian, and a philosopher, but you're most often compared, I guess, to Jean-Paul Sartre, the great existentialist philosopher. And I wonder if you feel a kinship with either of these two, or whether there's another philosopher. I mean, I know you've mentioned in your books Rousseau, whether you have a particular kinship with any one or other French philosopher.
Rousseau, certainly not.
No?
No, certainly not.
But you admire him in some respects.
I admire the Rousseau which is the less well known, at least not the Rousseau of the social contract, not the Rousseau of the of the pure humanity in the limbos and corrupted in society, I don't buy all of that. This idea of an original purity corrupted by the society, which is the Rousseau, which we all, most of our...
But you critique that, actually.
I hate that,
yes.
I hate that. But the Rousseau of Les Confessions, the Rousseau making some gardening or some botanic, the lonely Rousseau, the dreamy and lonely Rousseau, I like him. Between Sartre and Camus, if I had to choose one, I would probably say Sartre. What I like in Sartre is that he's probably the last model for me, for my generation, of the total intellectual. A writer, a philosopher who plays the game on so many grounds, on so many tables, philosophy, novel, theater, politics, and so on. This is a miracle, and this is what France has produced best. And when you said that when one says that my name has become, my initials have become a brand, Sartre did not even need initials. His name was a brand.
It's true.
At the time of Sartre, when you, all over the world, when you thought France, there was two names who came in mind: Charles de Gaulle and Jean-Paul Sartre.
It's interesting how both of those names, and perhaps that's just the function of social media and the barrage of information, have dissipated a bit in the public imagination. What is your feeling about the way in which someone of that stature has somewhat diminished in his profile?
There is a will today of diminishing the grands, the big guys or the big ladies. There is a will, a temptation to harass the big deads and to kill them a second time. Sartre is a victim of that.
Yes.
You have a few days in France where you don't have someone spitting on the cadaver of Sartre, insulting the memory of General de Gaulle and so on. Not because they disagree, but just because they are grand. We are in a religion of the pettiness, in a religion of mediocrity, and those great proper singularities, as were de Gaulle and Sartre, are properly hated today. There is a hate of singularity.
Of singularity, do you think it's the triumph of democracy in some sense, of the,
It is a triumph of a sort of democracy which Alexis de Tocqueville predicted and saw coming, which is a sort of summit and at the same time reversal of democracy. Yes, this you have in Philadelphia a penitentiary, a jail, which was a jail built and held by Quakers, which is the model of panoptic. There was the crowd of prisoners, and there was in the middle of it, as you know, as all the people in Philadelphia know, a place where the guard of the jail could look at anyone at the same time.
the panopticon?
Panopticon. Today the panopticon is reversed.
Is that in order to make the mediocre and the ordinary feel better? Is that your rationale for why this is happening? Or is it a function of technology and just the way our society has evolved?
It is in order to make the mediocre feel that mediocrity is the natural state of humanity. If you have singularities, there is a sort of remorse and guiltiness of the mediocre. There could be some singularities. Once upon a time, there was a world, and there is still a vestige, testimonies of that, when you had singularities. And they put a shadow of remorse and of reproach, of grievance on the state. So if you erase the singularities, it's okay. The last of the men, as Nietzsche said, can reign peacefully without any anxiety.
Well, I want to get back a little bit to your beginnings as a philosopher in the 60s and 70s, and the naming of your group, the Nouveaux Philosophes, the New Philosophers, as a reaction or as a response or a continuation of Voltaire and Diderot in the 18th century, the Philosophes, but also as a rejection or reaction to French Marxist or doctrinaire Marxist thought. Could you explain a little bit about these new philosophers and art, or not so new anymore? Do you still feel yourself part of this group, or has that sort of become no longer relevant?
What was important was, from a leftist point of view, to criticize Marxism. From a liberal point of view, to denounce progressism. From a liberal point of view, to break with the hellish hell logic of good victims and privileged executioners. The old generation said, okay, sometimes you have to make an omelette, you have to break eggs, and there is some victims which are necessary because they are the concrete with which you build the new world. So the new philosophy, with a more sophisticated way of expressing it than what I'm doing now, sort of contributed to destroy this logic, and stressing on human rights, on democracy being not just a sort of vague idea, but a real body of concepts and a consistent pattern of society, and so on. All that was new philosophy.
But it's interesting that in critiquing Marxism from the inside, as you did, you still, I think, consider yourself a leftist. You say it's your family of origin, but it's in America, for example, I think those who broke with the left or criticized the left have tended to move to the right and become part of the neoconservative movement. You don't see yourself that way.
Good for them, but it's not my case.
Yeah.
No, this was 40 years ago, but you had 40 years ago two ways to criticize Marxism. Way number one, Marxism. We hate Marxism because it is seeding disorder and revolution. Way number two, which was mine, I hate Marxism because it is a school of slavery. Not because it creates revolt, because it prevents revolt, because it obliges the poor people to shut up and to be slaves. The Marxism was a way to say to millions of people all over the world, you suffer, but it is in the order of the world. You have to suffer. You must not complain because your suffering is part of the new world which we are building. So the idea was not to denounce Marxism as a school of revolution, but as a prevention, as an impeachment of revolution or revolt. This was the key point of what they called at this time new philosophy. And to this, I'm still faithful.
And I think it's still relevant, what you're saying.
It's still relevant, yes, of course.
The Genius of Judaism, which is your latest book, and which I found very, very interesting, especially in light of some of the events that are happening right now. And one of your major point is that this anti-Zionist sentiment is the newest form of anti-Semitism, in your view. I don't know if I'm oversimplifying here. You have 5 forms of anti-Semitism outlined in the book, and you say that, and I want you to explain that, because so many Jews feel that to be anti-Zionist and to be anti-Semitic are two very different things.
It is not the core of the book. It is not the main point, no. It is the first chapter, but thanks God, the book goes to other questions. It's so depressing to speak about anti-Semitism at the end of the day. What I say, yes, you are right, is that if I have to say it precisely, I say that the best way, the only way to be anti-Semite today with efficiency is to be anti-Zionist.
I see.
If one wants to be anti-Semite and to be heard and to gather around his mottos, his slogans, a big bunch of people who will have the feeling that they don't really hate the Jews. They just hate the state of Israel. They just hate fascism. They just love Palestinians. If you want to create this feeling, anti-Zionism is perfect. It is a good dressing for the old anti-Semitism, and probably the only one today.
I want to cover a lot of ground with you, so I'm going to move on to your book, American Vertigo. a very interesting book, following in the steps of Tocqueville, who in the 19th century toured America and critiqued it, lauded it, and criticized it. You do the same. Tell me, can you put in a nutshell some of your thoughts about America as you perceived it, as you crossed the country? What impressed you? What depressed you about our nation?
So many things impressed me. I love America, to be honest, and this is why I devoted so much time to write American Vertigo, to go on the Footsteps of Tocqueville, and so on. So I love America, but I love America like friends love their friends, daring to say what is wrong.
Very few Frenchmen will say they love America.
Yes, I know, but I do.
Yeah, okay.
I do,
pleased to hear that.
and I always felt that the hate of America, in its essence, is always a bad sign for a European. Heidegger was anti-Americanist. Louis Ferdinand Céline was anti-Americanist. All the fascists of the 30s, the 30s of the 20th century were anti-Americanist. There is on the extreme right, and then on the extreme left, a hate of the idea of a country based on a contract, based on a law, based on a constitutional patriotism, which is America. And as for myself, I love that. I love that someone feels citizen not because he has the feet in the mud and in the blood, but because he has a head in the stars of the American flag. I like this idea. It's the most civilized way of being a citizen. And this is embodied by America. This is what I like. After that, what I did not like, I said it in American Vertigo, was probably what was the germs, the stem cells of what we know now as the Trump phenomenon. I think that in American, I did not understand anything. Of course, I was among the Europeans who did not believe that Trump could be elected. But when I rethink of American Vertigo, the things which embarrassed me in America, which I did not like, hate of the elite, which was already rising, anti-intellectualism, this crazy idea that to protect the society, you have to give weapons to war weapons to people. I remember to have visited in Texas some fairs of weapons where you could have Nazi weapons in free, all of that. Retrospectively, when I think of all of that, I feel that the devices of the Trump bomb, the devices of the Trump bomb were there.
We're there.
Except that I did not get it.
Okay, I'm going to shift gears here and talk a little bit about your reputation as a...
Very bad.
Well, as a libertine, is that too strong? As someone, well, you have been associated with many beautiful and famous women. And you have a reputation as a Lothario.
As a?
Lothario, a Don Juan, a man very appreciative of women, and I wonder if what your view of women is, and your sense of, do you believe in serial monogamy? Do you believe in the thrill of the new and the allure of beautiful women? Have your views of women changed as you have grown older?
I don't know what is women, to be frank.
Okay.
Jacques Lacan, the great psychoanalyst and great philosopher at the same time, said, la femme, the woman, does not exist. He knew specific women with a specific face, with a specific singularity. And I cannot see the things or otherwise. For me, there is not the women as a gender. It's not that.
Okay, so you won't answer my question.
And my way, I'm sorry?
So you're not going to answer my question. I mean, I see what you're saying, but it's very, the fact is the French relationship to women, there's always been, and the relationship between the sexes in France is so different from America. And I think of you as being very much part of that dance that I associate with the French appreciation, flirtation, and that gender division, which in America I actually think has dissipated a bit, but not in France. Would you agree with me
flirtation,
there?
I don't know, but if this is what you are meaning, I agree. Seduction,
Yeah.
charm, the
Repartee.
the pleasure of marivaudage, as we say in French. This is part of the
culture,
of the life, of the culture, of the literature, and of all that. And you can be, by the way, a monogame, and like this sort of relationship. You cannot. I am a strong partisan of equality, of course. Since I was 18 years old, this has been a big fight of my life, and I believe that feminism in France and in Europe is one of the great achievements of our time. On the other side, I don't think that to be a woman and to be a man is exactly the same, and I think that a humanity where the frontier, the border between the genders will be sort of denied, will be a humanity much more sad than it is. And it is already sad. It will be even more sad.
Okay, I guess you're answering my question
We
now.
should mix. It should be possible in this 21st century to mix the concern for equality and the concern for difference, and the concern for this unknown territory, this gray area between men and women, which is the very place where the seduction can take place.
But I guess as difference proliferates within the notion of individuals, the difference between male and female blurs. And I think in France we still have that demarcation far more. And as a result, it's a far more romantic culture.
You have two levels of difference. I told you before my love about singularities. So this is the main difference. And you have this absolute separation of humanity into singularities, which work for women, for men. But there is nevertheless something which is as old as the world, which makes sexuality between men and women possible. After that, you have other forms of sexuality which are, of course, as acceptable, but which is a real, strong, giving vertiginous difference between men and women. The big source, I call the book American Vertigo, but the real vertigo in mankind is this unreachable, impossible to analyze a distance between the two sexes.
I want to talk about your relationship with French presidents. You've had a changing relationship with President Sarkozy. I don't know where you are with him now, but I wonder how you feel about power in France right now and if you feel allied with it.
In democracy, power must be used by citizens. Power is at the disposal of the citizens. When they can, they have to call it, to make interpellation to him and to use it. When I have the possibility of pushing Nicolas Sarkozy to take a strong position on a big human rights situation, on the risk of genocide, I'm proud to do it. When I have the possibility to say publicly to Mr. Hollande that I think that he should resist to Vladimir Putin, that he should not deliver the war vessels which were signed by Sarkozy, and when I have the impression that François Hollande maybe heard what I said, I'm happy and proud of it. When I bring to François Hollande 7 or 8 Peshmerga Kurds commanders in Élysée, when he receives them and when he decides in front of me and then in front of the press to give them the support of France, and when I know that this has started from an initiative of the citizen which I am, I'm happy and proud. The power has to be respected maybe, but used more than respected.
But how is it that you're able to have this influence? It's so rare for a private citizen, and you are not, you have no particular diplomatic status, formal. It's all as a private citizen, and I think you are jealous of maintaining that position. How is it that you have been able to have this kind of influence?
I am energetic, and I am probably right.
Ah, okay.
And
you are eloquent, I suppose. You convince people.
I don't know, but right. When
A lot of people are right. They don't necessarily get near to power.
And maybe they are not energetic enough, not daring enough. I'm daring, I'm free, and I'm right. Let's say the three things.
Okay. Well, we're out of time.
I am so free.
Well,
So free.
It's a pleasure to meet and talk to someone so free. I want to thank you very much for this conversation, which I wish we could continue. And thank you for joining us today at the Drexel Interview.